Thank you for joining us in our study of the book of First Thessalonians. Today we're in First Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, verse number 10. Now, we talked yesterday about how God had taught the Thessalonian church how to love. And we're going to pick up on this theme of love again today. So in verse number 10 of 1 Thessalonians, it says, "For indeed you do practice it towards all the brethren who are in Macedonia, and we urge you, brethren, to excel still more." Many years ago, I took guitar lessons. I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I remember sitting in this room with my instructor, and he said, "Do you want to be a good guitar player?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Then practice, 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 practice." You see, what he was trying to teach me is that if you don't practice, you're never going to become good at playing guitar. Well, you know what? I believe that the Apostle Paul here in writing the Thessalonians is telling them something. He says, "For indeed you do practice, and you practice, and you practice." What are they practicing? They're practicing the love of God. They're practicing loving each other. You see, there was really two things that made this church stand out as a church. Number one was their faith. Their faith was being spread through the whole area. In fact, Paul's there in Corinth, and he's hearing about their faith. He's several hundred miles away from the city of Thessalonica. This is not the day of the internet. I mean, it took a little time for a report to come down to the Apostle Paul, but he's heard a report of their faith. But he's also heard a report of their love. That's one of the reasons why we're studying the church at Thessalonica. Because I believe that if this world needs anything, it needs people who are living the life of faith, but it also needs people who are living in love with each other. And so the Apostle Paul says, you guys are practicing this. You guys are already doing this. You're practicing and you're doing it over and over and over again. And he says that you're practicing it towards all the brethren who are in Macedonia. Now, maybe that doesn't mean much to you, but I want to just take just a few minutes here to describe to you what this place called Macedonia was like. If you could picture a map today, and if you would look at the Mediterranean Ocean and in that area of Israel, you would see Greece. If you would go to the northern part of Greece, you would find this country at the time that Paul is writing called Macedonia. Macedonia today is made up of several countries and parts of several countries. It's made up of the northern part of Greece. It's made up of a new country, or a fairly new country, called North Macedonia. It's also made up of a country called Serbia. Have you heard about Serbia in the news? It's also made up of a country called, or parts of a country called Albania, and parts of a country called Bulgaria. Bulgaria. I almost forgot the country there. Do you understand that the Apostle Paul is talking about a large mass of land? This church is only 3 months old at the time that Paul is writing this. But yet their love has spread to all the brethren that are in this large area. Their faith is spread, but also their love has spread towards all of those brothers in that large area. Wow, what a wonderful testimony of this church. This church was a church of faith, but this church was also a church of love. But then the Apostle Paul says this at the end of verse number 10. He says, "But I urge you, brethren." Now this is something that's not just saying, well, maybe you ought to, this is kind of a good idea. No, the Apostle Paul is saying something much stronger than that. He's saying, I urge you. I urge you. I want you to do something. He says, I urge you, brethren, to excel still more. Wow. They've been a tremendous testimony. They've of love and of unconditional love towards other people, towards the brethren. But yet Paul's saying, guys, you can't just sit back. You need to continue to practice. You need to continue to love others. You need to continue to love the brethren. And you need to do it in a way that you're excelling, that you're moving ahead with speed, that you're excelling in this area of love. Brothers and sisters, I believe that we as Christians need to take this same message that the Apostle Paul wrote to this church in Thessalonica. And we need to take it and bring it to heart that we need to practice the love that God has given to us. But not only that, but we need to excel even more. In other words, we can't just sit back and say, I've done enough. I've loved enough. How many of you know God never said that to us? He's never said, I loved you enough. Therefore, sit back. I'm going to sit back. God says, I'm going to sit back and I'm not going to love you anymore. No. The Apostle Paul says, guys, you need to continue to love. You need to excel. You need to move ahead quickly. You need to move ahead powerfully in this area of love. You need to love one another. You see, we as believers need to take this message to heart. I don't want to go into verse number 11 yet because, verse number 11 is going to tell us how we can do that. So understand that we as believers need to accept this same challenge that the Apostle Paul is bringing to the church at Thessalonica. We need to excel in our love towards each other. Thank you for watching. God bless you until we speak to you again.